Alright, this is a video covering the basic functionality of the Behringer Crave. I get a lot of requests about sequencer and basic operations of the synth, so hopefully this video helps some people out get a decent foundation to grow off. Alright, so what is the Behringer Crave? It's a semi-modular analog synthesizer with a MIDI to CV converter. More on that later. They produce two waves as standard, a saw and a square, and it's switched by this switch. The envelopes on these are attack, decay and release, and sustain. So decay and release means this. No sustain. So you've got a punch on the sound that isn't there. But when you get past 12 o'clock, this becomes a release. That's why it's a decay and a release. And this can be used both on the filter and the amplifier. Now, although you can choose it on the amplifier, the only way of decoupling it from the amp is to trigger it by some kind of gate. So if you had another Crave here handy, and every time, let's get a longer wire, and every time you was to play a note, you turn the other one on. So now I've bypassed the gate on it, and I can use that envelope. Well, you actually can't, but it'd be nice if you could use it for the filter without using it on the amp. Almost impossible, as far as I see anyway. Yeah, so they can't be decoupled. They're essentially there all the time. The only way that you can bypass it is if you are triggering it off another synth, and in that scenario you're still going to want the sustain up. Okay, next, the menu functions. All right, the menu functions. Let's start with the first one. Got 5 menu functions here, and bear with me a second, these are quite hard to remember. Alright, yeah, the first menu is PPS, PPNs, PPQs. That's just to do with the speed of what you're clocking it to. If you've got it with a pocket operator, you find your pocket operator is going twice as fast as it should be when it's synced, change this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Generally I find 1, 2 and 3 are the ones that you want. So that's the first menu. Second menu. Second menu is for the assign out, which I've talked about in my advanced videos. So you've got 8, and then if you hold shift, this goes all the way up to 16. But 13 is the last one you want. 13 is relevant. After that, they don't do anything, which is weird. So I don't know why they're there. Maybe they were going to add them later. Page 3. To page 3 by just flicking these once you're in the menu. Page 3 is for the clock source. This is really important if you want to sync it to the Crave, for example, sync it to your DAW. For example, 5 would be auto, which is the thing I suggest you probably have it in if you're getting confused. 1 is internal, so it's only going to listen to its internal clock. 2 is MIDI DIN, so it will only listen to the tempo through MIDI. 3 is USB, if you specifically want to have it on that one. 4 is CV, control voltage, so it could be triggered off another Crave's plus and minus 5 volts. And page 4 is for the rise and fall polarity of the trigger. This you won't have to worry about too much, just depending on what synth you're pairing it with, but if you get stuck with it, that's probably going to help you. And also I'll link a document. I'll have 2 links in the description for documents. One of them will be about CV triggers and polarity, and the other one will be an updated manual for the Behringer Crave, because they don't seem to have updated it last time I checked. One thing which they have done, which is quite good, is this seems to work in Ableton better than it used to. So that's really good, and we'll get to that in a minute. Alright, so the next thing is just basic sequencer functions, absolutely bare bones sequencer functions. So we'll come out of the menu, make sure we're in a state to play. Page 3, and we want on 5. There we go, which is auto. So we do a little sequence, and to do that you press record. Count your steps as you're doing it, it's a good tip. So we know we've done 8 steps. To play, press play. To save, really easy. Press shift, hold space till it flashes. If you hold shift and pattern and bank, these features that are in white, they're the shift function. So if you hold shift and press pattern and bank, now you can choose what bank you want it in. So let's say we'll have it in bank 8, and now if I hold pattern, we'll put it in pattern slot 7. Alright, so now we've chosen where we want it. Now we press shift and record, and that's it, it's done. Okay, so let's come out of there, go back to it. So that's how you save a pattern. To play it backwards, shift and play. To choose the note length, shift, set end, 5. Okay. To put glide on something, you would hold shift on a step, and you can see light 5 has come up. You have to turn it all the way full. Right, again 5. So now 2 steps have glide on them. And glide is quite hard to hear if you don't have steps that are far apart. So let's do another pattern. And we'll put glide on that one, and glide on that one. So that's glide. To reset a pattern, shift, pattern, reset. Press record to do a new pattern. Ratchets. Pick a step, shift and pick the step till it flashes. Now shift and glide to choose ratchets. Again, choose the step. Right, as soon as this note sticks out, I'm going to put an accent on it as well. Okay, so another thing you can do is we'll clear this sequence again. You've got hold, reset. You can see it resetting every time I press reset. Yeah, and the other thing you can do is on a step, if you just choose a step, you can choose the gate length of it. So if you wanted to tie this note into this note, you need to make sure that this one is full length. So you can see it's tied the note there. Okay, so 2 more things. The next thing is the mod source. So if we stop the sequence from playing, I'll just clear it for the sake of doing it. The mod source. So if you was to get the LFO, put it on the mod source. Get a nice bit of pulse width on a square. But you can also have envelope. And the other thing you can do is you can use an external source. If you look carefully at where it says mod source, it says LFO on the right and it says envelope or oscillator mod. So that means if you plug something into the oscillator mod, i.e. another LFO from another device, you can also use that as a mod source, which is really handy. You can also reverse the polarity of the filter envelope. So that's negative. So positive will create a stab. And negative will create a kind of rise. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was Ableton. So let's try and get Ableton up. There we go. Right. So to sync this to Ableton, like I said before, you're going to need this to be on the right setting. And that setting for Ableton, for me, is 5. Reason I say 5 is because sometimes I use this for MIDI and CV as well. So if they're not both sending a signal to it at the same time, 5 being auto is the easiest thing for it to be on. So let's play Ableton. You can see the Crave is playing a sequence. If I make that more interesting. Right, okay, so anyone who's having any problems with this syncing in Ableton, it's a real simple scenario. This is your sequencer sending out MIDI data, and this needs to be on sync. You see how I said the Crave was on auto? Now it's using its own tempo, because it's not receiving any data. But the moment it does, it will switch the tempo to whatever your DAW is. And the setting for that, if anyone's a bit confused, is go into the menu, page 3, and you want it on 5. And you need this to be ticked, the sync. So that means your DAW is sending out data to the Crave and the Crave is receiving it, and the Crave is on the right setting to receive it, more importantly. Okay, so now, if you want to control something in Ableton on the Crave, where I mentioned these being a MIDI to CV converter, that works like this. Let's stop this sequence. And for this particular scenario, we don't want to send tempo to the Crave, because we're going to be sending it notes. Right, so we've got a little sequence there, and that's being sent to the Crave. Now, if you go into the settings on Ableton, on the clip, you've got MIDI control, and you get to choose what MIDI CC you'd like to control. Now always pick one. Now, the next thing you want to do is make sure that the Crave is on the right setting. So to do that, you need to go to menu 2, where you have your random assign out, and you want to press shift and 5. Now you're on 13, which is MIDI CC1. Then you want to come out of the assign. I like to go into a mult first because then it gives me 2 things to control, but for now we'll just use 1. I'll come out of the mult and we'll go into cutoff, filter cutoff. So you can't hear anything at the moment, and that's because this is done. So let's do something half decent quickly. Let's go back to notes. Do take that. Okay. Do sort out my little mistakes on Ableton. There we go. Right, okay, so now let's try drawing in something. Okay, so let's use that mult to do something else at the same time. So now we're taking this MIDI information and we're turning it into volt, or the Crave is turning it into voltage, and it's sending it out to the filter. But now, because I multed it, we're also controlling the oscillator mod, which is really nice. You quickly put something behind this. I don't have any of my old strips here, so we will just get a loop up for now, I suppose. Sound a bit better than a dubstep beat. These are terrible. I'll find a good one. I'll do. There we go. Right, okay, so the important thing to remember when you're doing this, go into your audio settings. You want to make sure that your latency is as low as possible. So on my sound card, I can change the buffer size to a very small number, and that gives me a really low latency. When you've got a lot of plugins, you're going to want it the other way. You're going to want a higher buffer size. But I generally find that I've got a lot of hardware and I'm not really using things like Serum so much anymore, so I'm not having to worry about that too much. But ideally you want the lowest latency that you can get. You can hear that these two things don't have any problem being in time. And if I want to make the Crave twice as fast here, come out of the menu. Should be able to let me do it faster. I can't even remember myself what I've done wrong there. But you should be able to choose tempo divisions. Actually, you wouldn't be able to. You can only do the tempo divisions when you're using the internal sequencer. So there we go, there's our little clip. I've somehow muted it. There we go. So if I was to get a quick drum rack up, go into my sound folders. right for now. A little bit of side chain and you'll already have something quite good. So let's do that. Let's put a little bit of side chain on it. I'm kind of giving away all my plugins here, but it's fine. So with this side chain, it's really easy. You just want to choose an external source. We'll have the kick. By no means is that anything finished, but you can already see how quickly So really, there's no excuse for using this in a live scenario. I don't see anything wrong with it at all. Sorry, in your DAW. You get comments about bleeps and bloops and stuff. I generally find those people don't know what they're talking about. Very little patching going on there. In my eyes, very little done there. Okay, so that is pretty much it. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head to help anyone anymore. The advanced tricks, the patching stuff, I definitely will do more videos of, but the basics of this are quite simple. I just advise you read the manual and test everything. Hopefully this has helped a lot of people out. Thanks for your time, guys.